Happy Sunday, everybody, and we are going to make it even happier because, along with
Happier by Marshmallow and Bastille.
Alexa, stop. Oh, listen to her trying to give us a little bit of music so that we can dance to our little bit of a freak out. Haha, you're going to understand my play on words there in a little bit. So, we are going to play with cheese today. Everybody knows that cheese is a keto thing, but what do you do with cheese? You put it on a sandwich, you put it on a pizza, you put it on... Well, some people, including me, have been buying a product that we get at Costco that is a cheese cracker. Awesome snack if you're snacking, which I don't recommend, but crumbled up when it's hard, like crispy like a cracker, it makes a great crouton in a salad. So you're making a keto Caesar salad, you can use these cheese crisps on top, but they're pricey. And one of the things that I hear from people all the time is, I can't afford whatever. And the most common one that I hear is, I can't do keto because I can't afford to eat steak all the time. Well, guess what? Me neither. Steak is ridiculous. And here's a true story for you. I walked out of a grocery store a little while back with a steak that I had purchased, and that particular day I had also purchased some running shoes. And I got to the door and the beeper went off. And I said to the fellow, it's likely the shoes. I'd gone through the self-checkout, and he said, no, actually what set the beeper off was the steak. So there you go. They are even putting security things on steak. So that's what that is. You don't need to be eating steak all the time. You do not need to be eating expensive cuts of meat all the time. And you do not need to be buying expensive cheese crackers and whatever. So let's play with some cheese, see what we can accomplish, and I think you are going to be pleasantly amazed. Okay, now for this particular recipe, you really do need good morning, Mom. You really do need a non-stick frying pan, or a non-stick pan of some kind, or you can also do this in the oven. You really have to watch. And do you know, in Canada today, for the very first time this summer, it is going to be plus 25 Celsius, which, if you're American, that is 77 degrees. And if you're somewhere down south, that may not seem very hot, but to us Canadians, it is. So let's get started with this. Now, you can use all kinds of cheese for this. And what I have today is a triple cheddar. Oh, I also have an amazing fresh hot cup of coffee. Compliments of my husband before he left for work this morning. So very grateful for that. And it has sugar-free almond in it, which is absolutely one of my favorites. Okay, so we have a triple cheddar. We have taco cheese. Now, these are shredded cheeses that you buy in the grocery store. Because another thing that I hear from people all the time is, I don't have time. I don't want to spend all my time in the kitchen. I'm never going to quite understand that, but I know a lot of people feel that way. So if you are going to buy shredded cheese, you can use that. Parmesan petals is another one that we're going to be looking at today. Now, I buy Parmesan petals because they are convenient, and they do have some anti-caking stuff on them, and we're just going to deal with that. The other thing that I have is some extra old cheddar, and you can grate this or not. Now, something that I've noticed in the last 6 months to a year, the older cheddar is, historically, the more crumbly it is. Hard to cut because it's crumbly. But for some reason, it is not crumbly anymore. It's gotten to the point where it's sticky. And I found the same thing with medium cheese or old cheese. And I read an article, I don't know where I read it. I read it somewhere that said that butter, the consistency of butter and the melting point of butter has changed, and people wanted to know why. And the answer that the scientists came up with is because a lot of farmers have started feeding their cattle palm oil. That really makes me a little bit cranky because it's not good for the cattle, and it's definitely not good for us, and I don't have any answers to what you can do about it. So that I'm just going to leave that where it is. Now, I am using a very small non-stick frying pan, and the reason that I am using a small one is because when we do this, we need to work fast. And there are lots of things that we can do with this. We can just break it up and have little cheese crumbles that we can use for croutons in our salad, or, well, let's get busy and you'll find out. Oh, the other thing that I have is some pre-sliced cheese. So you don't want to buy the shredded cheese? That's fine. This is pre-sliced and it is super easy to work with. As a matter of fact, let's start out with that one. Now I'm going to turn my frying pan on 2, so you want it medium low. We're going to be frying this cheese, and not something that a lot of people have heard of, but it is definitely something that is easy to do. We're going to throw the paper out because no use for that. However, this paper, if it isn't waxed, it can go in your compost. Now, the slice of cheese that I have, I'm just going to fold it in half once, and then I am going to fold each half into halves. So now we have quarters. Now we're going to wait for this dry frying pan to get hot, and we are just going to place each of these quarters into the frying pan. Now these, you have to work quickly with this because burnt cheese does not taste good. And that is not quite hot yet. I maybe should have heated this up a little bit before we got together because this was ready very quickly. Okay, so there's one. Now these are going to turn into beautiful little cheese crackers. You can do, if you have a large sheet pan, put a silicone liner in it. You can do several of these in the oven at the same time. You want to make sure that they're not touching, which I apparently did not do very well here. That's okay. I'm just going to move this a little bit. Yeah, you want to be careful with these. Now, one of the things that's nice about using pre-sliced cheese is that you get the same consistency, the same as using shredded cheese, kind of. Whereas if you're using something like the block of cheddar and you're cutting it in slices, you may not get quite the same consistency. Okay, now look at how this is bubbling. And once it's fried, you don't need to do it for a long time. You're just going to do it until you start to see a little bit of brown at the edge. Now, one of the things with the cheddar is it does have a little bit more oil in it. Between batches, you want to make sure you're wiping that oil out or pouring it out, and you see how this is all bubbly? It's kind of like pancakes, right? When pancakes start to bubble, then it's almost time to flip them. Now you're going to want something that is very thin, and, oh, that's not quite, I'm going to turn that up one notch. Now you'll find when you play with the cheese, you'll find that different cheeses are going to take a different temperature. And cheddar has a little more oil in it that you have to cook out, so a little bit higher, but not high enough that it's going to burn that oil. If you have a magnetic induction burner, hello there, I am so glad to see you here. Sabe, I am not sure how to pronounce your name, but I'm very grateful to see you here, and I hope this is something that you do at home. Now, flipping these, is a little bit tricky, as you can see, because I just folded that one in half. So you want to pick it up with one side and then flip it over. Once you flip it over, and this is thin enough that, now the first ones I did when I was not with you guys worked perfectly. So, you know, that's Murphy's Law. Okay, we'll try this one. There we go. That's what we're looking for. And once you flip them over, it's only about 10 seconds that they need to be in there, and then they are done. Now you absolutely need to have a plate and some paper towels. So I'm going to show you, because I obviously did not get that out. Okay, here we go. Because these little babies are done. So we're going to take them out of here and put these beautiful little cheese crisps on a piece of paper towel. Now this one is the one that folded over. So I just left that in there until last. Okay, now it is important that we wipe this oil out of the pan because, or pour it. And pouring it out into a little dish is going to give you a better idea of how much oil you're taking out of your cheese as you fry it. Okay, so now you saw how much oil was in there. Let's do some parm. Now I'm just putting some of these petals in the way they are. Now the problem with that is if you just put the parm petals in, some of them are going to be a little thicker than others. Some are going to be a little bigger than others. So if you take these parm petals and you break them up so that they're very crumbly, you can put them in the pan in a little more consistent, way. And then once you get them in the pan, just push the little crumbs together. Now this one, you can see it's happening very quickly. There's not nearly as much oil in this pan, so we could fill this pan much more, and it only takes a few seconds, and we are taking that beautiful little brown chunk and flipping it over, and then 5 seconds. About the time you get all of these flipped over, it is going to be time to start taking them out of the pan. So these little guys, do you want to save those for croutons? I don't know, maybe. Let's stack these cheddar ones up. And we'll get these other ones out of here. Not a lot of oil here to even worry about in the pan. So that's something to remember when you're filling your pan. And then we're just going to wipe this out. And we're going to use a nacho cheese. Now, we've made some crackers and crisps here. This time, we're going to sprinkle this all over the bottom of the pan. Now, this nacho cheese is a blend of mozzarella and cheddar and pepper jack. So there's a little bit of spice in here. And that's taking up the whole bottom of the pan, right? Okay, but watch this. Now this is going to take a few seconds longer to cook than the parm did. I'm leaving this on too because there's cheddar in there, and the Monterey Jack, the pepper jack cheese as well, is a cheddar type cheese. Now you want to watch this when you see the edges start to nicely brown, because this is sprinkled in the pan uniformly. When you see the edges start to brown, it's almost time to turn it. Now this is called Frico. It is an Italian word that means fried cheese, but it is called Frico. So even though we are doing it with a taco cheese, now again, even though this is bigger, you're going to want to be able to get something underneath it. And then you'll want to be quick with this part. Oh, nope, it is not quite melty enough. Nuts! Okay, we're going to let that go for another minute. See, I'm looking around the edges, and I was getting a little overzealous because some of the little pieces started to brown, and I didn't wait for it long enough. But you're going to be amazed at what this is after it's done. Now, let's see if we can pick it up now. And when I say a few more seconds, I am not kidding. I mean, it's not like putting something back in the oven for an extra 5 minutes. Okay, so here we go. Now, if you have a really thin plastic spatula, you can also use that. Oh my goodness, this is just going to be really difficult. There we go. Okay. Now this one, because of the cheddar and the Monterey Jack in here, it's going to have more oil. It's going to take a few extra seconds to cook. So we're going to leave this. Now we need a special way to deal with this after it's done. And I'm going to show you how I do it. Now I'm just going to set this aside. How jealous are you guys that you're not here to be eating these crackers? Okay, so we are going to take a couple of jars that are, well, not quite the same height, but they are close enough. And remember the muddler that we used a while back? Well, we're going to use that muddler again, and we're going to put a piece of paper towel underneath this. Now I will show you what I'm doing here because you can't see it yet. Okay, so you see what I've got? Whoops. You got to get it balanced, and then you have to trust that it's going to stay there. Once you get the cheese on it, it'll stay there. Okay, now as this comes out of the pan, we are hanging it right over our muddler. In theory. Ouch. It is very hot, so heat-proof gloves may be an idea. You know, I have done this many times, and why is it that when you're doing something in front of people, it never seems to work the way it did when you weren't doing it in front of people? Okay, you know what? Here we go. This is hung over the muddler. I am just going to set it back here where it was in the first place. As this cools, it is going to turn into an amazing, crisp taco shell. So now you have a zero-carb taco shell. Only took you a couple of minutes to make. If you're doing it for an entire crowd of people, I'm not sure that I would be so excited to do it. Now, that was a taco blend, so that makes it a very good choice for a taco shell, in my opinion. And then, if you've got it shredded, you already have your shredded cheese to put on your taco. Now, this is a cheddar blend, and this one has medium old and extra old cheddar in it. And again, we're just going to sprinkle a little bit in the bottom of the pan. And we're going to let this cook. Now these I want to be more like little crispy bits. So once they start crisping up, we're just going to flip those over in the pan. These are going to be wonderful for salads or you know what? It's your kitchen. Whatever you want to use it for. Now, one of the things that I use cheese crisps for often is my fried chicken. 1/3 ground pork rinds by weight. 1/3 ground pork rinds, 1/3 cheese crisps, and 1/3 almond flour. And then you add TSL Organics fried chicken seasoning, which is my version of 11 herbs and spices. We're just going to flip this over. Now, I'm not worried about how pretty this is because when it comes out, I'm just going to crumble it up anyway. And when I'm ready to make my fried chicken, I'm going to throw that in the food processor. It will be well drained. Now, when you're doing this at home, if you're doing Parmesan crisps or a hard cheese, Grana Padano, Asiago, Parm. Those ones you can maybe store on the counter to munch on for a little while. Cheddar, and any of these really, there is a little bit of oil in them, and you don't want that to go rancid, because then you don't get to enjoy your cheese crisps. Now this one, we're just going to take these out of the way. And we're going to set this on here. So this, just very lacy, very pretty. And we're going to crumble it up, and we're going to use it in fried chicken or anywhere that you need breading. So if there's something that you are wanting to cook where you need some breading, or you just want to sprinkle a little bit of wonderful cheese dust on top that doesn't really look like cheese, this is an awesome way to do it. So for breading, again, by weight, not by volume. 1/3 ground pork rinds, 1/3 cheese crisps, and 1/3 almond flour. And if you're doing it yourself, you're going to save a lot of money. Now I want to show you what I mean by that. Now this bag of wisps is 269 grams, and it was $12. $12. This bag, which is now empty, was 1 kilogram, so 5 of those ish, and it was only $14. So you can save a lot of money doing this yourself. And granted, the oil is going to be coming out, but you know what? That oil is beautiful saturated oil that is going to be amazingly flavorful, so you can put that in a container in your fridge. Look for ways to use it. You're not going to be sorry. Okay. These are the Parmesan ones. That is so good. That is absolutely amazing. You know, it just kills me that I have to taste this stuff for you guys, right? Okay, now this is the cheddar one that we did. This is the medium cheddar, the slice that we broke into 4. Nice and crunchy. And it tastes awesome. Now, look at this already. We just did this a few minutes ago, and we already have our taco shell. Even though I kind of messed it up a little bit in the pan, but trial and error is going to make it. Now this one is not crisp. This is chewy, and that's going to make it awesome for a taco, because you're going to be able to bend it and it's not going to break in half. How many times have you had that happen? I have no idea how many times I've had it happen, but a lot. So go get out your nonstick frying pan. Get some cheese out of your fridge. Grate it, slice it, do whatever you like to it, and throw it in the frying pan. Low, medium low. You're going to be changing that temperature a little bit depending on what the cheese is. If it starts smoking, you've got it too hot, turn it down. If it's not browning, it's not hot enough, turn it up. You'll figure it out. Now, if you want to really dress things up, a little bit of grated jalapeno pepper. If it's shredded cheese, if you've shredded it, add a little bit of onion powder or garlic powder. Be very careful about adding salt, because cheese has a lot of salt in it already, and you don't want it so salty that you can't eat it. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. I want all of you to go and do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. That's what I'm going to do. It is time for me to go and work out. So I will see you Friday at noon. And I am going to try very hard to have a guar gum recipe, and I do believe that it is going to look something very much like a milkshake. And it's keto. What the heck? Okay, you're not going to want to miss that, because it's going to be delicious, and you're going to want to be making one at home. So I will see you on Friday at noon. let's do it. And it will also be Canada Day. There is not a better time in the world